also very important important information for you. Your dock is dock number 2. It's very important to know. I guess you know that already from the morning tour. Not that often, but sometimes people like to stay in Schönbrunn Palace. And then they come back and then they don't see their ship because I guess you have noticed your ship is not the only Viking ship here around. And so dock number 2, some of them are nearby. Some of the Viking ships, they're quite far away from each other. So if you tell the taxi driver, Vida, I'm pretty sure he doesn't know where to go. But if you tell him dock number 2, then he should find a way over there. Dock number 2, next to the huge bridge, next to the huge church, at the main branch of the Danube located. And I guess most of you have joined the morning tour, so you have already a little impression about Vienna. And maybe some of you remember as well the Jubilee Church to the right. And the Jubilee Church looks actually like a very old church from the Middle Ages. I'm pretty sure my colleagues have mentioned that, but it's not that old. It was erected for Francis Joseph being 50 years in power. And Francis Joseph, he was a phenomena. He ruled the country a little bit less than 68 years. And during his time, Vienna completely changed. So when he was born in Schönbrunn Palace was in the countryside. He was the one who ordered to demolish the fortification system, which was protecting Vienna for centuries. That's where nowadays the Ring Boulevard is located. He was also the one who ordered to regulate the Danube. So maybe you've noticed it's a straight stream. So that the same engineers who built the Suez Canal, which connects the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea, were also engaged here. So already in the 1800s, the British Empire was trusting in Austrian, also in French engineering. So globalization is nothing new. So also our companies, they were working around the globe back in those days. Yeah, and this was also one of the huge achievements, because the Danube looks peaceful, but in the past there were horrible floodings. And it was threatened many, many times. And that's why they had to regulate the Danube. And when Francis Joseph died, Schönbrunn Palace was already a part of the city of Vienna. So we are heading now to one of the western suburbs. The same happened to Schönbrunn Palace, like to many other palaces here, the area around Vienna. Because the city was expanding, especially in the 1800s, a lot of the summer residences became part of the city of Vienna. Like Versailles. Versailles used to be in the countryside, nowadays it's located in one of the suburbs of Paris. And I would say that's also the answer why there are 2 palaces located, which belong to the same family. And it's because the one was a summer residence in the countryside, the other one was the Winter Palace, located in the city of Vienna. It's always a little bit tricky over here, and always a challenge for our dear bus drivers. Yeah, because I guess you have been told already a lot of things about the Habsburgs, about Vienna and so on. Maybe you also want to know a little bit about the economy. How do we earn our money? Yeah, so tourism is important for the country, but I would say it's more the industries that makes the country wealthy. And we produce a lot of high quality steel for the world market. You can see the high rises from your ship compared to Dubai, compared to New York, compared to Hong Kong. They're not so impressive. But for us, they're quite huge buildings. You have to keep in mind the whole country has just 9 million inhabitants. That's not that much. But we produce the high quality steel for a lot of the high rises around the globe. So if you go to New York, to London, to Los Angeles, to Dubai, to Singapore, to Hong Kong, not the quantity, but the high quality steel, a big part is made in Austria. Then especially car industries. I guess you know Porsche. Porsche is one of the wealthiest Austrian families, big players in the car industries, but also the Magna. It's an Austro-Canadian company made by a self-made billionaire, and a lot of well-paid jobs, not only over here, also in Northern America. It doesn't matter which car brand you ride, at least one part was made or developed in Austria. So that means that we earn more in the car industries per capita than the Germans do. It's also something that you wouldn't expect about Austria. Also on your journey along the Danube, you're going to realize there are a lot of gateways, a lot of hydropower plants, and that's also a technology that we are exporting around the globe. Out of 5 Kaplan turbines for the world market, 4 made in Austria. And it doesn't matter if you go to Canada, to the United States, to Norway, to Switzerland, Australia and so on. These are our hydropower plants. And along the Danube, there are even hydropower plants that produce more electricity than Hoover Dam, for example. And only the Danube hydropower plants provide more or less the electricity that we need for our own households. Of course, we need much more electricity for the industries and so on. And to the right, you can see again the DC tower, the needle-shaped tower. I guess my colleagues have told you what we were able to do there before Corona started. Not? Bungee jumping. But you had to pay in advance.
Can't chicken out at the top.
Yeah, and Tony Faber, the preacher from St. Stephen's Cathedral, he was the first who jumped and he blessed it. I would say that's brave. But I'm not sure if they're going to reinstall it. The main reason is it's quite often windy along the Danube. Not the best circumstances for bungee jumping, I would say. Yeah, and that's also useful information for you. Over there to the left there's a greyish pavilion, and beneath us there's the underground line U1, the red line. And this is the only stop of the red line which starts with a V. We like Victory, we like Vida, we like Viking, we like Vienna, quite easy to remember. And just in case you want to stay, €2.40, it's a good investment, and that would be the fastest way to get back to your ship. But of course there are also taxis, and what I would recommend you is to use the shuttle service back to the ship, and later I'm going to show you the pickup point. So I know I've been told by American guests, if that's wrong, then please interrupt me. So I was told that in some parts of the States it's like that. If you take the bus, you have done something wrong in your life. It's not like this here. So like many other European cities, Vienna was not made for cars, and a lot of people who have a BMW or Mercedes at home, they prefer the public transport system, and it's an excellent public transport system. That's something that we're exporting. So even if you go to well-developed cities like, for example, Sydney, the new ones in London, even in Singapore, you find our underground systems over there. And also maybe you have noticed we have some very fancy trams. Some of them, they have Porsche design, other ones they're Bombardier, and it doesn't matter if it's Siemens or Bombardier. Most of the trams for the world market, they are developed here. So it's not just car industries, also trains, trams and so on. And in opposite to Saudi Arabia, in opposite to Canada, in opposite to the United States, we cannot compete with resources, we don't have them. That's why we have to compete with high quality products on the world market. And even though we are a small country, we're exporting a lot of goods around the globe. So now I was talking about Austrian engineering and technologies. Now I want to talk about British engineering. A wonderful example of British engineering of the late 1800s. You can see here to the left, giant Ferris wheel. I'm pretty sure most of you remember it. It's the landmark of the Prater, a green area twice as big as Central Park. It's huge. Yeah? And the front part, maybe my colleagues have mentioned, it's a fun fair, but you don't pay an entrance. For the fun fair, you pay for the attractions. And in case you say I've already seen enough churches, palaces, museums and so on, I want to do something different. That would be an opportunity. And Vienna is more known for wine growing. So if you look to the north, you can see the hills which are surrounding Vienna. Especially at this time of the year, it's nice to go up there hiking. You have a great view of the city. And there are a lot of vineyards over there. But if you prefer beer, they have a little bit like Bavarian beer gardens. The Schweizer Haus, it's called Swiss House, but actually it's more like a Bavarian beer garden. And they're also famous for that. And here, this is the area of the Northern Railway Station. To the left, you can see two Porsche trams, if you look to the left. So for €2.40, you can ride together with a lot of people in a Porsche. Maybe not that fast, but it's a comfortable way to explore the city. In the center of the square, you can see a column surrounded by greenish horses, reminding us that we used to be a naval power. Might sound strange to you, but a little bit more than 100 years ago we had access to the Adriatic Sea, so our harbors were located in today's Italy, Croatia and Slovenia, and we had modern battleships, some of the first flying boats, water aviators, and also famous names like Porsche. Developed engines back in those Lohner, Ettrich and so. They were pioneers due to aviator technologies. And as well, we had submarines, and I'm pretty sure especially the ladies, one Austrian submarine captain, Georg Ritter von Trapp, yeah, from the Trapp family, from Sound of Music. Yeah, so. Yeah, and that's a common question. I'm quite often asked about the Trapp family. I'm not sure, are you heading to Budapest or the other way around? Yeah, so maybe some of you have already been to Salzburg, and you, yeah, so I have to tell you, your whole journey is a chain of appetizers. Yeah, I guess there are a couple of areas where you can spend at least 3, 4, 5 days or maybe longer. Yeah, and for those who haven't been to Salzburg, a good reason to come back to Austria. And especially the Lake District over there, it's amazing. Yeah, and the Trapp family, they used to live here in the area of Vienna. On your ship you can see two spires. They don't look so impressive, but if you come closer, it's next to the hills. Yeah, a huge monastery, more than 900 years old. And one of the oldest wineries of Europe, and quite close, nowadays it belongs to the Porsche family. There's a beautiful palace where the Trapp family used to live. And the first wife of Georg Ritter von Trapp, this was the real love story, but unfortunately she died quite young. And the two youngest children, they were born there. And Hollywood even changed the names of the children. For example, the youngest one, her real name was Martina. And it was then one, so they were born, she was born in Martin's Palace, next to St. Martin's Church. She was baptized over there. I guess that's why she was then called Martina. And real Maria, she was part of the Neuland movement, which is the Roman Catholic movement for new ways of teaching. And she was born here in Vienna, and she moved then also to Salzburg. And because of this tragedy, because the first wife of Georg Ritter von Trapp died, then the Trapp family moved over there to Salzburg. Maria was in a monastery, but she was not a nun. And she was more teacher of the family. And guess who forced her to marry the captain? The nuns of the monastery. They said she should marry the captain. And real Maria, she always complained about the movie. She wanted to stop it. She went to the court. We know she failed because her husband is shown in such a horrible way. And that's also one of the reasons the Austrians, we don't like the movie so much. I hope you are not too disappointed now. Because for us it's not so authentic how Georg Ritter von Trapp is shown. He's more shown like a Prussian officer. By the way, to the left it's the Rainier building, and now we are entering the Ring Boulevard. And to the left, that's the Ministry of War and Defense, and behind that there's some buildings where also Georg Ritter von Trapp, because he was a submarine captain, also he served there. There's also the buildings of the Austrian Lloyd, where they are hidden, you cannot see them from here. Yeah, and to the right is the Postal Savings Bank. So maybe some of you remember these buildings from yesterday. So sorry, from this morning. This morning.
It's okay. Yeah, exactly.
okay.
It feels like this.
Yeah, and to the left, the reddish brick building. I just mentioned that because I'm quite often asked, even people who have been told they want to know the buildings again. That's the Academy of Applied Arts added to the Museum of Applied Arts. And over there you can see how designs changed over the centuries. If you have once the chance to go to London, please visit the Queen Victoria and Albert Museum. It's an outstanding museum. Yeah, and this collection is much smaller, but it's also the second oldest of its kind and also the second biggest of its kind. So the Queen Victoria and Albert Museum, that's the clear number one. This one is much smaller, but it's the same kind of museum. So you won't see their paintings, you can see how designs changed. And there's also, you can see how classicism looked like Baroque, Rococo style, Biedermeier, and later we're going to see a mix of these styles in a certain way. But there's also amazing focus on the time around 1900. And as well to the left you can see there's one of the side entrances to the city park. So like the British, we like parks and gardens. And also in the suburbs, there are amazing parks and gardens, and we are heading to one of the most beautiful ones, Schönbrunn Palace. It's not just about the palace. A very important part of the architecture are doubtless the gardens. Yeah, just for the gardens you can spend at least 2 days, walk around. So also this is going to be more appetizer for you, and that's what I always tell my guests. It's kind if you want to support our economy, spending money in the souvenir shops, but I would recommend you more to spend more time outside, to go to the gardens, and so that's my personal opinion. Yeah, for a short moment, if you look to the right, there's gonna be a white palace with a lot of white columns. Now if you look to the right, we won't see it all at the same time, and up there is the coat of arms of Saxony-Coburg. I guess most of you know this family. A famous branch are the Windsor family. It's the Windsor dynasty. To the left, that's Johann Strauss, the golden statue. Maybe also some of you remember that from the morning tour, and as well to the left, the Cure Saloon, where he used to perform. And that's the music to this kind of architecture. So these buildings here along the Ring Boulevard, they're not so old compared to the other buildings in the city center, but they should be a necklace for the old historical city center. So they are between a little bit more than 100 to, I would say roughly, most of them they are between 110 to 160 years old, and they were, most of them were built during the time of Francis Joseph.
Another Carl's
And also for a short moment, the chance to see if you look to the left,
So which
you can
Carl
see
is Carl's Twats named after?
you can see Prince Schwarzenberg, and he was the commander of the Battle of Nations. 600,000 men fought. That's comparable to World War I and World War II. And this is more than 200 years ago. He was able to defeat Napoleon. On the right, it's the famous Hotel Imperial. So, Napoleonic Wars are not a big topic in your country, but for Europe, they changed a lot.
Carl's Platz for Who's Karl's Platz?
Soon.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. My son is also named Karl.
Me too. So maybe my colleagues have mentioned that the Russians liberated us in 1945. But they stayed a little bit longer than we wanted them to stay, for 10 years. Vienna was split, but just for 10 years. So I guess we're the only Western country where you find Stalinistic monuments. And for a short moment, if you look a little bit to the left there, you see a jet spring. And behind the jet spring, there's a Russian soldier with a golden shield and a golden helmet. Made out of melted Hitler statues. Yeah, and so Vienna was splitted between East and West for 10 years, and also Austria was splitted for 10 years, but just for 10 years. So that's the big difference. And in a few days we are celebrating that we regained our independence 10 years after the war. The price that we had to pay was high, neutrality. And to the left, that's St. Charles, roughly 300 years old. To the opposite, the reddish building, maybe you remember that. If you turn around and look back, then you see the main entrance of the Music Association. As well to the right, that's the Albertina Modern. And to the left, there are two pavilions, which are part of our underground system. And in between, there's the Technical University, and they're very proud because one of the professors recently received the Nobel Prize. So Ferenc Krauss, maybe they told you in Hungary as well, he has Hungarian roots. Here he became famous because of his works, and for a very long time he was a professor at the Technical University. Last year also a Nobel Prize, but for the other university. So this is the nucleus for sciences. Yeah, and I was asked about Karlsplatz, the square over here is called Karl, like my name with a K written.
Yeah.
And because of Saint Charles.
Oh.
Charles, the German word is Karl with the K written, and the father of Maria Theresa, his name was Charles, and I would say Saint Charles, that's his personal monument in a certain way, this huge Baroque construction. And it's from the same architect who also designed Chambon Palace. So I don't want to drop too many names. There were a couple of architects engaged, but the mastermind doubtless was Johann Bernhard Fischer von Erlach. Johann Bernhard Fischer von Erlach, if you keep it simple, Mr. Fischer. And also he designed also amazing buildings, churches, for example in Salzburg, for those who have been to Salzburg. And it's corresponding with another cupola. If you look to the right, there's the entrance of the Secession building, and up there is a golden dome made out of laurel leaves. So I guess all of you can see the entrance to the right. I'm afraid not all of you can see the laurel leaves. Please don't be upset, because on the way back I'm pretty sure my colleague gonna point it out for you again. It's not the biggest but the most important building due to Art Nouveau, and it's located close to the market. People didn't like this contemporary design so much in the late 1800s, and that's why some called it the Golden Cabbage Head, because it's located so close to the market. Nowadays the Viennese are very proud. It's from the late 1800s. It's something that you always have to keep in mind. It's a steel construction, very geometric, new ideas to design, roof windows and so on. Nothing special anymore for us, but in the 1800s this was a revolution due to architecture, to design, and with the same ideas later skyscrapers were built. Also in the 1920s and 30s, but this is from the late 1800s. That makes it so special. So there was always the struggle between old and new. The market on a Sunday, I would say that's not the best day to visit the market. Obviously, I've noticed that. But during the week, that's a nice place, and there you see also a lot of vegetables and fruits that you won't find in supermarkets. A lot of spices, vinegar, wine, cheese, ham, caviar, all the things that you get in the luxury hotels, restaurants you get also over there. There are also a lot of little restaurants on the other side of the market. So in case you come back to Vienna, it's a nice spot to go. And here in this area, on Saturdays there's the biggest flea market. So everywhere you see there's cars over there, it's a huge flea market. So in case you come back to Vienna and you love flea markets, then make sure that there's also one of the days a Saturday, because that's also kind of institution. Yeah, and we are heading still to the western district, so we have left the inner city center. Yeah, and the Prater that we have already seen was one of the hunting areas, and also Schönbrunn Palace. It started as a hunting lodge already in the Middle Ages, and during the Renaissance time it was enlarged, was changed into little Renaissance palace. And I guess even those who cannot speak German, I'm pretty sure you know some German words. And a nice and polite way to say thank you very much is Dankeschön. Dankeschön, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Schön means beautiful, it also can mean nice, yeah. And once one of our emperors was hunting over there, he found a crystal clear spring, and he said, what a beautiful spring. A new name was born, Schönbrunn just means beautiful spring. And then the whole area, the palace, was also called like that, and I would say this was a new branding in a certain way. But in the late 1600s, the Turks were around. Horrible situation, nearly the whole population around Vienna was murdered in big parts of Europe. Much more people died than during World War I and World War II. And in the last moment, it was the European army that rescued Vienna. And then a huge reconquering started, and in a short time, in a couple of years, they kicked out the Islamic warriors of big parts of Europe. And guess what happened to everything what was Oriental after we managed to defeat them? Of course, the churches were changed into churches. We are heading to Budapest, Fisherman's Bastion, St. Matthew's Church. The most important church back in those days was one of the mosques that were changed into church. As well, the slaves were liberated, but the Turks left all kind of strange things here, like colorful tents, exotic spices, valuable fabrics, and also some strange greenish beans. I mean, he thought it's for feeding camels, but there were some smart businessmen and they knew you just have to roast it, and then you know, can brew something wonderful out of it. I'm pretty sure some of you have already an idea what I'm talking about, and you are right, it's coffee. And coffee was not invented here. There are even older coffee houses, for example, in Bremen, in Hamburg, because we have an English guide over here as well. So my dear colleague, Martin. London has even an older coffee house than Vienna. Venice, for example. But here the coffee houses became some kind of a second living room, and I wouldn't say it hasn't changed that much. And what's typical about Vienna and coffee, we started to add milk to the coffee, and this fashion was then spread over Europe. So even caffè latte, especially cappuccino, that's the Viennese kind of coffee, as brown as a Capuchin monk. That's the background. It was in former days just served in a small region in northern Italy. Nowadays, you might think it's something typical Italian, but the roots are here in Vienna. The opposite around, I'm afraid I'm not disappointing you too much. Viennese schnitzel, the origin is from northern Italy. So we have a lot of influences from other parts of Europe, including Italy. But especially if it comes to pastry, if it comes to coffee, a lot of these ideas were spread over Europe. And still, if you're heading to France, if they're talking about pastry, they quite often call it Viennese bakery. Maybe you have noticed that. Also, if you go to Naples, to Florence, to Rome, if they're talking over there about pastry, they also call it Viennese bakery. And also in Germany, but probably you won't realize that because Wiener has nothing to do with sausages. Wiener just means Viennese. They call it Wiener Bäckerei, which also means Viennese bakery. And even the croissant came from here to France. It was Marie Antoinette, not the most successful wedding story to tell. She was then beheaded during the French Revolution, but the croissant stayed in France. I'll be later gonna tell you more about that. Yeah, and after these horrible wars, a lot of trading started, and most of the time we had a very good relationship to the Ottoman Empire. So like for the British, India was very important. For us, for a very long time, the Ottoman Empire was very important. This was our gate to the east. And it's especially Armenian, Sephardic Jews, they were the bridge between east and west. And in the Orient, they were fascinated by chairs. Suddenly they started to sit on chairs. We were printing books for their market. We were producing automatons, clocks, watches for them, and the other way around we were importing fabrics, cotton, nothing special anymore, but back in those days from Egypt the cotton, silk from China was traded to the Ottoman Empire and then to us, and especially also luxury goods like coffee. And a huge economical success. Suddenly, because of these victories, it made sense again to build something valuable, like a palace in front of the city walls. And so the grandfather of Maria Theresa in the late 1800s engaged Johann Bernhard Fischer von Erlach, the mastermind, to build a bigger palace than Versailles. Because there are a lot of kings. Yeah, but an emperor, that's much more important than a king. Yeah, and who had the biggest summer residence? Doubtless the French king, Louis XIV, the Sun King. Yeah, and Versailles has about 1,800 rooms, so it's a little bit more than twice as big as Buckingham Palace. And the idea was to build a palace over here with much more than 2,000 rooms. Not all of these ideas were realized. Still, it's much smaller, but it's the clear number 2. So I haven't counted the rooms, but the books say 1,441 rooms. So it's a little bit less than twice as big as Buckingham Palace. And it's much smaller than Versailles, but it's the clear number 2. And every child needed to have a stateroom. That was very important. Maria Theresa, or even more. And Maria Theresa, she had 16 children. Actually, this palace was more built for her uncle, the German emperor. Unfortunately, he died quite young, and that's why the father of Maria Theresa, who was sent to Spain to become the Spanish king, suddenly was the Spanish king and the German emperor at the same time, just for a short time. Yeah. And he had his own palace, his own summer residence over here, famous for its beautiful gardens, and he was the one who gave this palace, Chambon Palace, to his beloved daughter as a very generous gift. Yeah? And she also enlarged it and changed it. Yeah, so most of the rooms that we're gonna see here today, they were built around 1700 till the middle of the 1700s, but also some family members later changed some rooms, like we change our furniture. Maybe the purpose of the rooms changed over the centuries. The same happened to this palace. And now, a very useful information. In case you want to stay longer, to the left you can see a white pavilion with a greenish roof. That's already written Schönborn. And from here you can get to Karlsplatz, with like my name, with a K. And from there you can get the red line back to your ship, in case you want to stay. And behind it you can see already a side wing of Schönborn Palace. So it's a, as I told you, huge palace. Yeah, and soon we get off, and then Martin and I we have to make sure that we have the right number. That's very important for us. And then we are heading to the staterooms. Yeah, now some very important information. So I kindly ask you, if somebody has a power nap now, let's wake them up. Yeah, because now there are a few very important informations. Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, backpacks are not allowed inside the palace. Purses, handbags are completely okay. But I kindly ask you, if you don't need your backpack, then please leave it on the coach. So if you say I cannot live without my backpack, we organize something for you, but it makes things much easier for us. To the left you can see already the cord of honor that we soon gonna cross. Then as well, eating, drinking in general, it's not allowed. But if you feel dizzy for medical reasons, of course, please do not hesitate to drink something. But in general, we avoid that, to drink or to eat in such historical buildings. Also very important, taking photographs, unfortunately, is not allowed. But please don't forget your camera, because there are a lot of nice spots around. They tried to allow it, but there was always too much flashlight, and the valuable fabrics, paintings, they are suffering. People always stopped at neurologic moments, points. Yeah, that was also one of the reasons. But please don't forget your camera. And outside it's completely okay, but inside it's not okay. Yeah, and also very important, the pickup point is also the drop-off point. So pickup point is drop-off point, but I cannot tell you if our dear bus driver gonna be number 1 or number 3 or number 5. Yeah, so that's always a little bit different. Just make sure that it's a Viking reader bus, M. So if the bus driver looks different and the people around you, it might be the wrong bus. Some of you are laughing, but it already happened that people took the wrong coach, the wrong ship, the wrong direction. Yeah, and I guess they were not tipsy, so but it can happen. Yeah, some of the ships, they have quite similar names. Yeah, the lobby sometimes looks. But then suddenly, then you realized that you were not able to enter the room. Yeah, and it was too late. So please make sure, and he won't wait here. Yeah, but he's gonna be back at 3:45. 3:45. Yeah, 3:45. And yeah, there's also then the meeting point here, 3:45. But if it takes you a little bit longer, that's also okay. But at least at 4 o'clock we have to leave. Yeah, so 3:45. On the bus driver, Nihad, he's gonna be there. Yeah, and now those who are sitting from your perspective to the left, most of them, they are joining my group, and the others, they are joining Martin's group. As I told you, we don't want to split families, we don't want to split friends. You can already switch on your listening devices. And my channel is channel, I would say I take channel number 39. 39. Those who are sitting to the left, 39. Yeah, and those who are sitting to the right, I would say 40. So 39 to the left, and those who are sitting to the right, 40. And after leaving, we have to count you again, and then we can explore the palace. Thank you very much. Dankeschön. Sehen wir uns dann später?
Ja, ich bin die ganze Zeit.
Also du bist die ganze Zeit?
Ja, ja.
Okay, dann habe ich
geparkt.
Okay, passt. Ja. Haben Sie uns schon gefehlt?
I've been doing that all the all the way back there to walk?
Yeah.
Did you ask?
No, I saw where we get in.
I'm serious.
Nobody can give me. I have to organize something else. I got something like this. I'm sorry. We just go a few steps over here, my group.
We're in L. We are in L.